Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Rodan. And today, I'm still continuing my Disney movie marathon by talking about, of course, something that's somehow related to Disney and whatnot. And reading the title of this video, you shouldn't get an idea of what I'm talking about. So yes, of course, here we go again. So I guess let's just get straight to the point, I guess. Even though I feel like I'm just comes off I'm repeating myself because these things I look into just keeps doing the same thing over and over and over and just keep regurgitating the same kind of. Okay, this time around it's from this one individual from Sweden, and yes, of course, as you can guess by the title of the video, this let's say has more than a few concerns when it comes to the Disney princesses. Oh, they're harmful to little girls and they're bad role models. Yeah, we're doing this whole thing all over again. Which, of course, I'm going to disagree with because everything that was stated makes no sense. So, yeah, folks, here we go again. Me defending these characters again. But we all know the first Disney princess film that was ever created was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. All the way back to 1937. Yeah, that long ago. So you can't really judge an old movie by today's more standards because it's way long ago. So give me a break. So yeah, it's like responding to this article and I looked at, and again, here we go. Acting as if the Disney princesses are doing something evil when they're really not. So yeah, it's just something I thought was really ridiculous. Really, really ridiculous. Like the one individual that just showed a moment ago, who is from Sweden, it does have a concern when it comes to the classic original Disney princesses. Not those from the 1990s, but those that came up prior. You know which Disney princess I'm talking about, of course. So apparently, this individual had been studying the effects, the negative effects, when it comes to the Disney princesses on little girls. I don't know why it's always little girls, but what kind? You mean to tell me that little boys can't enjoy this? Seems very flawed right off the bat. But trying to do this on an international scope level ever since 2009, in a world where the Disney channels have been broadcasting through 133 countries. Well, yeah, it's a brand name at this point, so of course they're gonna do that. Of course, there's the films, the merchandising, so on and so forth, and the individual. She just want to see how there could be different effects from different countries and whatnot. They will have the same kind of idea of what makes a princess and whatnot. So yes, between 2009 and 2018, she had asked roughly around 140 little girls to draw a princess. They were from ages 8 to 15 and had lived from 5 different countries and whatnot. So, yes, they were actually interviewed in this private sessions for roughly 10 to 15 minutes interviews with each little girl. Asking them specific questions, who is a princess, or what age do you start watching the princess movies, and, stuff of that nature. So, this kind of thing just seems kind of odd. They're trying to have some sort of science behind this kind of a thing, as if to make the claim, her claim, to seem more legit. And if you ask me, this individual, she's just looking way too much into it, of course, obviously. And of course, you would ask, something in the lines of, do you think you could be a princess? Of course, the most little girls will say yes, because they find the idea appealing. I mean, that doesn't mean they're going to become one, but they can at least pretend to be one. But that's little kids for you. Of course, little kids are going to pretend. Even little boys had done it before, which is fine, of course. No judgment here. But they're little kids. When you're 15, 16, you consider as a young adult anyway. And, or even 16, 17, something, you get my meaning here. You consider as a young adult. So, of course, even then, there's still going to be some sort of, appeal to these kind of characters. I've been around since the 1900s, and I still watch these movies. I mean, okay, that would make me over 100 years old, sure. But still, my point being, okay, so what if they're that age? Whoop-de-doo. Of course, there's gonna be some sort of innocence attached. I'm thinking little kids from maybe little kids from maybe like what maybe I'll say 5 through 10. They're not gonna realize what the world around them, and then maybe I'll say from 11 through 15, you start to realize that there's more to the world than mommy and daddy. There's more to the world than going to school, going to a friend's house, and maybe having a barbecue or two, and then going home. There's more to the world out there. You start to realize that the entire world is a bigger place than you originally thought. You start to grow, well, at least hopefully anyway, start to grow more into more different ideas, into development, mentally speaking or whatnot. I mean, sure, some people might be slower than others, okay, but still you start to realize that there's more to the world than what you had originally thought in the very first place. Which is understandable, bro, because you would eventually gonna have to learn anyway. So to make some sort of argument against the about little girls from different places. Of course, one of the more popular characters from Disney, of course, has to be from The Little Mermaid. So obviously, there's a fairly good chance that a lot of the little girls going to be speaking about the character, drawing her or whatever with the red hair and everything, which is fine, of course. I mean, I didn't like the movie, but still. Or even sometimes they might draw the character Belle from Beauty and the Beast, the original one, of course. And yeah, of course, the article went on to say that none of the characters, yeah, they didn't draw other characters, but point being, none of the little girls had drew something from their country of origin. So basically, going at the lack of diversity within the whole idea of having princess characters from each country, which just sounds incredibly nitpicky if you ask me. And the thing is that even if you made a princess character from, let's say, let me see, from a character that's Dutch, maybe the character from, I don't know, let's say Cuba, maybe a character from who's Portuguese or Indian or whatever else you can think of. Even to tell me that's like the only thing that would be classified as a princess, that's it. Just use their ethnic background as enough of a character. Don't you think that's way too much of a one-dimensional character? The character have to have, character traits, such as maybe like a certain type of personality, being helpful, maybe slightly greedy, but nice anyway, and so on and so forth. What's her deal? Why is she in this, situation and whatnot? And of course, there's going to be some, requirements. Of course, the character herself has to be part of the government, of course. Has to be wealthy, has to be, being born in some type of family, so on and so forth. You can't just use the character's ethnic background as enough evidence to be part of the princess. I'm not against the idea of having diversity in a princess movie, don't get me wrong, but there has to be more to the character than just that. And but of course, they'll bring up the more up to date, what's considered the more modern princess characters. Rapunzel from, of course, the film Tangled, which is actually a pretty solid movie if you ask me, despite what maybe a few complaints, I guess. And then obviously the other movies such as Frozen 1 and 2. Obviously, these movies are gonna be far different compared to the much earlier Disney princesses. And which is fine. I mean, they still consider Disney princesses, I guess you can say, princess themed films, and they still have what's considered to be typical of the genre, but they're just executed in a different way, which is fine. You do the same kind of thing, just continue the same kind of pattern, take the tropes of this genre, and yeah, I'm calling it genre because since they made so many of these specific type of movies. But point being, you can take this kind of a thing, give it a new creative spin, and come up with something more different, while at the same time embracing what's considered to be a princess movie, but maybe change it up a little bit. But my point being, this article is just ridiculous, if you ask me. It just comes off, you're trying to have a unnecessary stab towards, Disney and whatnot. The individual who was behind this article just went on to say something about, they didn't say draw a princess. They said draw a princess. So, yeah, they went on to say this kind of a thing. And So again, the whole thing with diversity that's been brought up, and apparently, additionally, some little girls from non-Western nations, such as Philippines, India, or even China, and in their interviews with some people or whatever, that they couldn't not be a princess because their skin is not dark enough, it's too light. There's supposedly a hint of racism in these movies because these characters are making little girls they're not beautiful enough if they're dark skinned or whatever, or at the very least maybe like a coffee colored little girl or somewhere in the mix, somewhere like that. At least, I guess you can say a very light tan, I suppose. So you get what I'm getting at here. So these movies are apparently racist, and if you buy it, if you support it somehow in some form, you know better than a stinking racist or whatever. I just okay, whatever. I mean, not the first time I was accused of being racist, sure, but that's just ridiculous if you ask me. Come on. Is that assuming that these characters, at least most of these characters anyway, are racist just because they're light skinned isn't itself racist because you're assuming a group of people are going to be hateful, yet you hate if this group of people do the same thing towards you. Chinese have lots of light skinned people in their country, same with South Korea as well. And I don't see the woman who wrote this article saying anything about that. I don't see her calling them racist just for having light skinned. And I know there's bigotry everywhere from every country, which is true, yes, but still. Case in point, look at the Philippines. They're extremely bigoted towards the LGBT community. Well, at least some of them anyway. Not all of them, obviously, but those are a good chunk of them that are. That has something to do with the fact, yes, the Catholic religion. But I don't see the woman who made that article say anything about that. Like I said, there's a lot, the bigotry over there. It's heavy. It's definitely there. Again, like I said, before anyone says anything, it's because of the Catholics, because of the religion. Even if there was a few of them who really don't care, but the vast majority of Catholics are like that. At least over there, anyway, a good chunk of them. And even in this country, in America, same thing. There's a lot of Christians and Catholics who are bigoted towards the LGBT as well, and yes, towards women. So I find it odd that the woman trying to say something about bigotry in terms of the Disney princess movies, but don't actually point out the actual bigotry that does exist in the war itself. So it just comes off like just picking and choosing. You want to select certain things. I mean, yes, even if you fight against bigotry, it's not going to be all or end all, of course, kind of thing. There's still going to be problems even after you even if you win a few fights and whatnot, I get that. It's not. It's easier said than done, obviously. And you can't just be assuming something is bad just because of some notion that it's biased. You have to actually do some research and actually consider what you're saying to be actually false. Just because you are some sort of scientist or whatever doesn't mean you're always right, of course. But yeah, it just doesn't make any sense at all, like whatsoever. And yes, of course, there's gonna be a lot of people who are gonna be like, there's gonna be this type of stuff. I mean, I like princess movies. I'm not ashamed of it. I'll own up to it. And I really do like these types of movies. Whoop de doo. But however, yeah, of course, apparently there's a study that was done that was apparently worth considering, despite some sort of small sample size. But whatever, it sounds ridiculous if you ask me, folks. And yes, there's someone else that gets mentioned within the article itself. There's this woman that gets mentioned in the said article, and she's apparently is this child's media culture expert, and not say expert lightly, of course, because not even she's making sense. She's supposed to be this professional of media and communications at this university and whatnot. And yeah, she's the author of The Princess Problem, guiding our girls through the princess obsessed years and whatnot, which is, of course, really ridiculous. Just going along with the claim that there's something wrong here, apparently. So, okay, you mean to tell me that a Disney themed princess is like literally no different than reading the one book that Alfred Hitler did, Mein Kampf, or whatever you call it? I mean, really, that seems a big leap. That because apparently these types of stuff is bigoted just because a good chunk of them are light-skinned. Oh, therefore, you must be a crazy person to actually like them. Again, that seems like a real big, huge leap there, folks. Come on, give me a break here. So, yeah, there's a lot I would want to talk about in this, but I'm getting really tired of just saying the same thing over and over and over and over. Apparently, these movies has colonized these characters' imagination and what a princess is and whatnot. I mean, yes, of course, there's a certain way a princess should act and whatnot, but that doesn't mean there's a trying to put them in some box or anything. That doesn't mean that. But it's just extremely ridiculous if you ask me, folks. Yeah, it's just really, really absurd. And just because a lot of these characters are light skinned, it does not mean they're Caucasian. There's some, let's say, what if the character was from Eastern European? What if the character was Spaniard? What if the character was, let's say, Dutch? Or even Scottish? Or even, let's say, Venezuelan? And whatnot. Those people are very light skinned, and a good chunk of them have the blonde hair, blue eyes thing. That doesn't mean they're Caucasian. And at the end of the day, like I said before, I've said this before, that at the end of the day, the only thing I really seem to care about if there's a good story, a good plot. But whatever. Of course, there's going to be a lot of people who are familiar with the characters that I mentioned, like Snow White, because it's Disney. Disney have made these characters popular, so of course they could be familiar with this specific type of princess characters. Does this mean that there aren't any companies who are making any other princess characters? Of course not. There's plenty of non-Disney companies that are making princess movies. You just have to look for them. Those do exist, you know. Oh boy. Just it doesn't make any sense at all, folks. Just I found this entire thing just absurd. It's trying to paint a negative picture around these princess characters and those who support it just because you enjoy it. Which you shouldn't assume. If you could be an expert or something, you should not assume at all. Of course, there's plenty of people around the world, and and of course, beauty itself isn't inherently bad or good. It just depends on how you do with this beauty. Of course, and this was actually used as a plot line for a certain Disney movie because if anybody was actually paying attention, you would know which movie I'm talking about. Part the original Beauty and the Beast. There's more to somebody's personality than their looks. Of course, looking nice can be appealing, which in itself doesn't necessarily be a bad thing, but it just has to be more to the person, of course. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching and take care. Until next time, I guess. People.